For over 40 years, Nguyen Thi Dep had no idea what happened to her daughter, and Leigh Small had no connection to her biological family. Thanks to DNA testing and modern technology, all that changed. Until 2019, Leigh's story started here when her adopted family picked her up in 1975.
I had never seen a picture of myself before the age of 3.5.
The mother of 3, who lives in Maine, was only vaguely aware of her past.
I knew that I came from another mother. I knew that I came from a woman who gave me up out of love.
During the Vietnam War, over 3,000 children were evacuated as part of Operation Babylift.
One of the final airlift operations in Southeast Asia was the evacuation of thousands of refugees just prior to the fall of the South Vietnamese government. Included among the refugees were hundreds of orphans who were airlifted to sponsors in the United States.
Leigh was one of them.
Mothers and families were giving up their babies for fear of them being harmed and to keep them safe and to offer them a better life than they thought was going to be given there.
Leigh had taken a DNA test several years ago, and besides a few distant cousins, nothing remarkable came of it, until she got a message from someone through Ancestry.com.
My DNA says we're half-sisters. I believe we're sisters, and your Vietnamese mother has been looking for you.
The pair shared the same American father who had served in the Vietnam War. Leigh didn't know her mother's name, let alone that she had been searching for her. Within 24 hours of that initial message, and after cross-checking names, birthdays, and the date of arrival, Leigh and Nguyen spoke on the phone for the very first time.
And I don't believe that I can find you.
The first thing she said was, do you have a good life? Do you have a good life? And I said, yes, I had a wonderful life.
She talked about dropping me off and me just crying and saying, no, please don't leave.
During their virtual reunion, Leigh found out something heartbreaking.
She came back and the next day it was already too late.
Her mother had returned to the orphanage the next day, regretting her decision, and wanted Leigh back. Nguyen Thi Dep never stopped searching for the daughter she named Nguyen Thi Phong Mai.
She's my daughter. I love her. I let her go because I want to save her life, I just want to know if my daughter is alive and have a happy life,
I can't imagine not knowing for 44 years. I mean, how difficult is that? There is not one inkling of information that showed her that I was alive or doing well or anything. As a mother, I can't even fathom those emotions for that moment that it happened and then for the rest of your life.
For a mom, it was a reunion. For a daughter, it was a connection to her past, even if she didn't remember it.
There was a life there. There was a family there. There was love there.
When you see that child, you think about how hard that decision was for her. Before we hung up, she said, I want you to know one thing, that I always loved you, and I don't want anything from you but to know you and love you.
I'm not sure that I've conveyed to her enough that I don't have any bad feelings at all. And I want to make sure that that's what she knows first and foremost. And I'm hoping that when I see her and she touches me and talks to me the first time, that she knows that there's nothing but love and respect for her.
Leigh and her family made the decision to meet her biological mother in December of 2019. A few weeks and a few thousand miles later, a moment 44 years in the making happened.
Hi, how are you?
I thought that just a hug would kind of say everything.
Leigh's mom showed her places she used to take her, trying to spark any memories.
I think she wanted to prove to me that when I was there, she loved me, and she wanted to make sure that I knew. Those 3 years she had me, she gave me everything she could.
The trip included a reunion with dozens and dozens of family members Leigh never knew she had.
Finally, I came home to them. I was never one of those people who had that big hole in their life from my adoption. But when that hole was fulfilled and I found out my history, I don't think I realized how much I needed that.
For Leigh, the trip brought on plenty of emotions, some complicated.
As much as you think you know this person and that there's going to be a connection, it's still a stranger to you in some way. I felt like it was for her, and I wanted to give her that moment that she had built up in her mind for so long. And I had only had 2 months to build it up. So I felt like I owed her that moment.
A moment for a mother and daughter together, at least for a few days, before their final hug goodbye.
I hugged her and I said, that was so wonderful. And, I wanted to make a promise that we'll be back.
When Leigh and her family returned to the US, she said there was a lot to process, including the reaction to her story becoming public.
It was a difficult trip. It was exhausting and tiring. And there was a lot to kind of go through, some of the just hard things with communication and cultural differences. So I had to kind of process that on my own. But in the meanwhile, I was getting a flood of information from other people all around the world who were excited about my story. But I also had to kind of revisit my visit with my mother and talk to some other people to kind of go through some of the feelings I was having with it. It was all wonderful in itself to have the knowledge of my mother and the knowledge of my father, but I think sometimes you see the stories on TV and see all the great things about it, but there's a lot of difficult things that kind of go beneath the surface. It takes a while to really forge a relationship, never mind a mother-daughter relationship, but just kind of a friendship. So I think that's really what we worked on most after the visit.
Her relationship with her mother took time to navigate as well. Her father had already passed.
I think it took a while for us to both stop tiptoeing around each other, to kind of filter some of the feelings and kind of talk to other people from Vietnam or other people who have gone through this about what they were feeling and their emotions. And I was kind of correcting myself on, am I feeling the right things? Am I being selfish? Should I want more out of this? Or do I need to be more sensitive to her feelings? I've actually been more honest of what I needed from it. We've had kind of more in-depth conversations where before I was more scared of hurting her feelings, to kind of pry more into what exactly happened with my father and how she felt during the end of the war. Because everything when we met was all joyous and wonderful and all new. So of course, I just kind of wanted to keep it surface and I didn't want to make it deep because it was already emotional as it was. So I wasn't quite ready to get into the hard, deep stuff. She was welcome to it. I think she wanted to do it as well, but she didn't want to scare me off. She didn't know how much I wanted from it. And of course, I just wanted to give her all the sunshine from it. So I held back on that. And so we were both holding back for different reasons. And when I finally said, look, I want to have a one-on-one, I want to kind of pick at you a little bit, and I hope that's okay. And she said, I'm happy to answer anything you want. Don't be worried about that at all. But I think for our relationship to grow, I really needed to kind of get into the deeper feelings and let her know how I was feeling.
While the COVID-19 pandemic has prevented any more trips to Vietnam, Leigh has had more time to communicate with other family members stateside, like her half-sister.
She actually came to visit, and it was wonderful, and it allowed me to kind of learn about the upbringing. And it's funny, we went to dinner, and I'm not a very emotional person, but she pulled out a picture of my father when he was a baby, and then one that she had when he was probably 35, and it just brought this rush of emotions to me. So it was good to kind of revisit that side of it, because I really pushed my father's side off a little bit just because it was kind of unreachable. So to have somebody there physically part of my family from my father's side was really a different special side to it. I've been connected also with my aunt and another half sister, and there's another side of the family who lives in the Chicago area who's reached out to me and heard the story and said they wanted to get to know me.
Leigh thinks her experience can be helpful to others in similar situations.
I think a lot of them probably are like me and wanted to kind of put a little interest out there, maybe cast their net a little bit, but worried of maybe what would come in. And I always kind of pushed it off laughingly, saying, oh, it's okay if I don't find out. And I really didn't know how much a part of that loss and that hole in my life was. I didn't realize how important it was. So finding all that information really allowed me to kind of look in myself and realize how much of that really affected me and how much of having it has filled a void. And there are really hard things that go along with it, but really in the end, it's just amazing and wonderful. And you just get a new sense of yourself and you get a lot of answers that you need. You might not realize you need it, but I think people need it. And they're not always the best answers, but it's just a great thing to know where you're from and who you came from.
Thanks for watching Leigh's story. Click the subscribe button for more stories like this.